Welcome to Never Rewrite. I'm Isaac Askew.
And I'm Jeffrey Sherman. And today we're going to riff on the concept that old soldiers never die, they just fade away. And we're going to say old projects never die, they just fade away. This I have experienced so many times in my career, going all the way back to my first professional job, where we had an intranet and it had problems. So we started a second intranet, which it was a full rewrite and it didn't ever get succeed. And then we started a third intranet, a second rewrite of the rewrite. And that succeeded in killing off the second one, but it never succeeded in killing off the first one. And I had been there, I'm going to go 4 or 5 years into this project of removing the original intranet. And it was still there for some things, for some uses, because there were all these edge cases that it never paid enough. It never made sense to spend the effort to remove this functionality. And so no one was using the intranet except for the administration utilities, which just stayed around because it wasn't worth redoing them.
Right. So when is it worth, or at this point, is it considered is it still like part of the same system, or is it a new project? Is it an old soldier?
Well, in this case, I think part of the fallacy of the rewrite is the idea that you have to rewrite all of this functionality that works fine and is of low value because it works fine. And that's what sticks around. Someone's like, oh, well, I'm going to do a rewrite and I'm going to get this 80% of the functionality in the first 20% of the project. It's like, yeah, okay. And then you still have to do the other 80% because otherwise you don't turn off the old machines. And you never do it. It never pays to do it until you get to the point of, oh, well, now we're paying all this money to keep this software alive. And the only reason we're doing it is because we have these few edge cases that they don't make sense to transition them to pay for the edge cases. But eventually it makes sense to transition them because we have to update all the repositories, like all the dependencies, and keep these servers alive.
And that could be many years later.
Many years later. And it
or
just
never.
is, well, it becomes I'll call it a pensioner problem, since we're making old soldier jokes. You've got these old soldiers that are sitting around drawing a pension because they never die, and you have to keep paying for it. And it's that very, very long tail of... But the key piece is it never dies because there's stuff that you wrote that it's fine. It does it well, or well enough. And the use case is so rare.
So you end up, I guess for each project that does succeed, that gets to the point where people want to, or at this point, I'm trying to think of a good case that both tells the listener never to rewrite, but also goes and explains, I guess, the problem that you ran into. Because the problem you ran into is one of a rewrite. So you wouldn't get to that point, right? If you did the DC ship approach, for example.
Right. Well, this is a side effect of a rewrite requires you to rewrite everything, including the stuff that works.
So this is more like another reason not to rewrite. You could add it to the mini list of reasons. It's because you end up with this particular problem.
Right. At a high level, it's, hey, you're going to have all this stuff that it doesn't make sense to rewrite. And the way this impacts you is, even if you get over the hump, right? Even if you get, hey, we got the initial case that we thought was really valuable and important and we wanted to rewrite, and that's great. And now it's the new way forward, and everyone is doing it the new way forward. So all the new code is now in the new system. There will always be stuff that works fine the way it is and isn't changing, and you don't need to rewrite it except that you have a new system.
Right. This is almost like an effort problem, an effort or risk to reward kind of problem too. And it probably, I'm thinking of it right now, like there's plenty of cases too where they don't deal with a rewrite. Like just net new projects, for example. We're not rewriting an old system, we're going to build this new thing. Then you find out people don't want the new thing. The interest wasn't there anymore. But you never quite kill the project because there's a couple people that might be paying for it, or three partners
Yeah.
use the product or something like that, right? But you just don't maintain it anymore. But it's the same kind of question: is it worth all the engineering effort, shutting it down, deleting the code, deleting the references to it, cleaning it up,
Hmm.
porting off the users that were using it, or you just let it sit there and atrophy, fade away? You know,
Yeah, that is a thing too. I once, early in my career, but not as early as the first story, I was maintaining a terminal trading system. A trading system that worked in a VT terminal. Literally, it was a VT100 emulator. And it worked fine.
mm-hmm.
And it was very simple and it was very solid. And and we had some customers who really loved it and they paid us a lot of money. And so we maintained it. And literally, I was the maintainer and I would get asked about it like once every 6 months.
Yeah,
There'd be a question. And it's like, well, as long as somebody wants to pay us for this thing, it doesn't cost us much
to maintain it.
to maintain it because it's so solid. So it just existed, and it might exist to this day. Who knows? Because
But
it's a
one
VT.
person left on it.
It was a VT100 emulator. If you were a trader in the 80s and you loved it and you wanted to keep it, people would be happy to let you pay to keep it.
It's like retro gaming for finance nerds.
Yes,
Excellent.
and that was okay because that was well written code and it didn't cost anything. It cost almost nothing to maintain.
Hmm.
Versus anything that's facing the internet, where you have to update your libraries all the time.
Right. But
The
still,
v-
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say the VT100 thing. That's a private network with connections only available to people who are paying for it. So like it's a much smaller attack.
Yeah,
What
secure. Yeah.
were you saying?
Oh, I was just going to say that we still kind of run into the same. Uh, I call it like risk versus reward because it's
Mm-hmm.
still paying somebody to do all that is still the risk because it's money going out of your
Mm-hmm.
bank account that you could be using to keep afloat. But it's the same thing whether you were stuck in it due to a rewrite and you're trying to figure out how to port over the last bit of the system, or if it's worth it, or if you are building a new project that is not really worth maintaining.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key word. Is it worth it? Can we, for that two people that are still using the product versus the hours that the engineer has to
Mm-hmm.
spend to maintain it for those two people that might request it or they're still paying for it? At some point, there's probably a threshold where the money going out is greater than the money going in, and then you say, no, sorry, this is our last version, we're not going to support it. Or you make that decision, let's kill the rewrite. Let's stop trying to get all the functionality from the legacy and just let it coexist.
Yeah. Well, I think that's an interesting point you pulled up about just net new systems. So you have a new idea. You have a new product you want to sell, right? You
Mm-hmm.
sell um, ads. Let's say you're an ad marketer. You let people buy ads like through Google AdWords or whatever, and you want to start selling ads on Facebook,
Okay.
right? It's the same thing but slightly different, and so you have to invest a whole lot of money into building up your infrastructure and all of this stuff, and there's some threshold of usage where if you've got two customers buying ads on Facebook, it's not going to pay to keep the infrastructure running. But in the beginning, that's okay because you're like, okay, we got two, and then we're going to get four, and then we're going to get eight.
Yeah.
And eventually we'll cross that threshold where we're large enough that it's profitable. And you don't. And it's very hard, I find, for companies to say, well, we had this plan, and the plan was fine,
Hmm.
and it didn't work. Right? We thought if we could get 1,000 customers using this new product, it'd be profitable. But we only got 300. And it's one of those you have to decide what failure looks like before you start.
Yeah. And I imagine all the emotions around getting tied to the project and your own reputation,
Mm-hmm.
what you pitched, how off you were with your guessing on how many customers you're going to get.
Hmm.
All that probably ties into that. It's not purely just a logical decision of cutting it off. Um,
Right. Well, from the developer standpoint, even if you, this is a case where you could execute completely correctly. You built what they wanted. It
yeah,
works perfectly. The code is fine. And then you didn't get enough people to use it. And instead of them saying, hey, we don't have enough people to use it, we're going to have to shut this down probably.
yeah.
Usually what you hear is it's too expensive.
Hmm.
And so it's not, the feedback doesn't come back of, oh, you were perfect, we screwed up. And again, this all assumes that you built a giant platform without iteratively releasing small pieces of functionality and getting market
Yeah.
feedback.
Yep.
But you did this big release, and now the feedback isn't, oh, we marketing or product screwed up. It's, we need to make this thing cheaper.
Yeah.
Because if you had if you needed 1,000 and you have 500, the initial push isn't going to be, oh, let's cut it off. It's going to be, well, can we make it profitable at 500?
Yeah. That's an interesting point to it. Hmm.
And that's going to start you on a downward cycle as well. Because what you won't get is the feedback of, oh, this is what has changed. You'll get the feedback of your solution is too expensive.
Yeah, you're changing to deliver something that customers might want and that clearly didn't want from the first iteration because you got half as many as you wanted,
Mm-hmm.
to purely survival mode. Assuming this is all I can get, how can I make it worth my while? Yeah,
Right. Which is doubly bad because it doesn't give you the opportunity to say, hey, these are the features that customers aren't using, right? Like,
yeah,
the, you know, imagine if there was, we could cut off half the price if we turned off this feature that only 10% of our 500 users use,
hmm,
and then we'd be close to, then we'd be profitable. You wouldn't have that opportunity because the whole thing is there. It's got to fade away together.
yeah. That the iterative process, whether it's um, in shipping or if it's in getting feedback
Mm-hmm.
or in just delivering, I guess shipping, but delivering changes rather than a rewrite.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely consistent. Because
It
in
is.
here, the like being able to get the information as soon as possible from somebody, whether or not this is a product worth anything, and then kill it early without any remorse or emotions behind it if it's not what you expected. Almost like you're having like I imagine people aren't thinking this. There's a couple threads here.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get back to the engineers did everything perfectly,
Okay.
but the you almost want to have like a graph of like projected customers beforehand and projected profitability and where you're at
Mm-hmm.
before you release, and then actually manually edit it once you have that data of what it looks like. That way, you still have your projection line and you can see what your runway looks like. It's
Yes.
more of a higher level person at the company, somebody looking at the finances would be looking at, but having access to that too as like a developer, which I've worked at some companies that do provide how the company
Mm-hmm.
like how the company's doing to the engineers so they can see progress. That seems like super relevant, and like so you can course correct if things are completely off or talk about it in the next town hall.
Right. It's an observability thing, and
Hmm.
in my career, that's been very rare that stuff gets shared, which is unfortunate because if
Yeah,
the developers knew about it, they could do it. Like,
right, they wouldn't make, I mean, if they knew about it and they understood how to read it, they were given tools that helped them to interpolate the data.
oh no, I mean, if they knew what the metrics were, they'd make sure that the metrics were observable. Because what I find is a lot of times developers don't know what the metrics are, and so they don't
Yeah,
make them put in the effort to make those specific metrics observable, and then there's a disconnect of it becomes harder than necessary than it should have been to figure out is
hmm,
this thing actually doing what we want it to do.
yeah. It's almost like you have to build the metrics in as part of your product discussion,
Mm-hmm.
which I've done that before too. Like, what do we care about? What are we tracking? Because a lot of times it comes as like an afterthought.
Right.
But to begin with, adding that in there so you can track that, so you can get that early feedback. That's pretty critical.
Right. Like in the first example I shared with the intranet, way deep in the project, years in the slow moving process, we did have, we opened up observability and we said, look, these are the things that people are still doing on the first one and the second one. And do we even want to spend the time killing off these? Like, this is what they're doing. Like, we're looking at the logs. These are the things people log into these things for. We can now talk about these last chunks and whether or not it makes sense to move them over. The same way, like, if you've got an iterative
Yeah.
release, you'd be like, okay, look, we're thesis shipping this legacy system. You can then have those conversations of, well, we've hit the top 20%. And from here on in, it's going to get increasingly less valuable. It's the low hanging fruit, and we don't have to keep going, which is another one of those things that's great about thesis shipping and not a rewrite. You can just stop. Say, oh,
Yeah.
well, we've hit enough. We've gotten the quality high enough that it's no longer a big blocking problem. We've gotten it fast enough. We've fixed the whatevers. We can just stop. We don't need to go down to the very last thing that gets called once a month.
Yeah, at that point, like, who cares if it's two separate repos, right? Like, you've made one that, and you've iteratively shipped all of the things that you want except for that last bit, the legacy system. Just call that the legacy system. That serves the legacy stuff. Like, don't get so caught up in, like, I have to port everything over to make it complete. Who cares? Right. Just call it, that's the old system. And then you could even whittle down the remaining code to where it's just the code that serves the last few people. Then leave it be. It's just a box that serves
It's the old admin. It's the old control plane.
I think there's that compulsion that it must all be conformed and merged into the new system so we can sunset and clean up everything.
Right. No, you don't have to.
You don't have to.
You won't most of the time.
And you will burn cash trying to do that.
You will burn so much cash trying to. The best you could do is, hey, when we actually need to update something here, we will do it in the new one. And it's like, oh, well, we've
freezing
got
development in the old one is key. Yeah.
But again, only when you actually have a reason to do it.
Yeah.
Instead of doing it for the purpose of getting rid of the old one.
Yeah, if you're doing it just for the sake of your own compulsions, then you're probably at a very wealthy company that has plenty of money. or people don't know what you're doing.
Yes. Both.
Or both. Well, one thread I wanted to talk about, and maybe I'll just kind of tee it up for maybe a fucked up Friday conversation for next time.
Yeah.
Is you mentioned earlier that, engineers, they could do a perfect job delivering what they're going to deliver, like, and then everything could still collapse. Like the project could get cut. The engineers could get laid off, even if they did everything right.
Yep.
And I've seen that happen, and I've got one pretty big story on it. I'm pretty sure I can anonymize it well enough such that next time we could talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about it next time.
Yeah. So exactly. But this will be a different episode that's just basically like what happens when you don't understand or you incorrectly interpret the results of a user survey and build something completely wrong.
Nice.
And the side effects of doing such a thing.
All right. Well, I will leave you with a very short tale that I don't need to anonymize of developers doing everything right and the project getting canceled. I was working in finance, and Reuters is a company that provides market data, or at least they did 20 years ago. And they provide it very expensively for a lot of small exchanges. And so we had a project of, well, screw it, I've got a lot of really awesome developers, and I'm going to use that as a negotiating tactic. I'm going to have these developers write integrations and pull in the market data, not because I want them to do it, but because being able to threaten you that I can do it will bring you to the bargaining table. And so we did it, and we knew that we were doing it for this reason. And we did like 5 or 6. And that worked, because then Reuters came to the table and was like, okay, well, we'll cut your costs. We'll sell it to you for like a third of what we were demanding, because now we see that, yes, you have done the 5 most expensive valuable ones to us, and now the ones that are left are much less valuable. And we see that you're not bluffing; you will do it.
Okay.
And so we did it perfectly, which resulted in the project, which was a negotiating tactic, which resulted in the project getting canceled.
Ah, that's pretty good
Mm.
though. That worked out really well.
It worked out
but
really well.
but you're right. Yeah, in that case, the project's canceled. You don't need it. It was just a bluff. Well, not even really a bluff. It was a show of
Well,
force.
it was a bluff. The bluff got called,
Yeah,
and so we did it.
gotcha.
And these are hundreds of thousands of dollars a month things, so it made sense to have some developer teams doing this stuff. All right, but we digress. Thank you all for listening. Come back next time for a story about failure. Oh, maybe. I'm Jeffrey Sherman.
And I'm Isaac Askew, and this is Never Rewrite.